Hi, welcome to another episode of Bible Q&A. Today we're discussing, are we destined to be who we are? Well, it depends. When spirits directly influence human beings, the latter usually go down one path and don't depart from it. For example, in Luke chapter 22 verses 3 to 6, Satan entered Judas and made him decide to betray Jesus. Judas couldn't turn back at that point, especially since there were prophecies spoken about him, like Psalms chapter 41 verse 9. Plus, even if he wanted to, Satan would have convinced him otherwise. Also, before Jeremiah was even born, God decided to make him a prophet. Before I formed thee in the belly I knew thee, and before thou camest forth out of the womb I sanctified thee, and I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. Jeremiah chapter 1 verse 5. There was no way Jeremiah could not decide to perform his duties, since no human can alter Yahweh's decisions, as shown in Psalms chapter 135 verse 6 and Daniel chapter 4 verse 35. The same is true for the class of apostles today, according to Romans chapter 8 verses 29 to 30, since they serve the same purpose for Christianity that the prophets served for Israel. However, most of us aren't going to be influenced by spirits the way they are, so we have the freedom to choose between good and evil. As Joshua told the Israelites, "And if it seem evil unto you to serve the Lord, choose you this day whom ye will serve." Joshua chapter 24 verse 15. For example, in 2 Chronicles chapter 24, Joash served the Lord when Jehoiada the priest was alive, but after he died, he started to sin, and he even killed Jehoiada's son. Conversely, King Manasseh reversed all the religious reforms of his father, Hezekiah, in 2 Chronicles chapter 33 verses 1 to 9, but his exile in Babylon taught him a lesson, and he later brought Judah back to Yahweh. Plus, there are other aspects of the Bible that destiny doesn't comply with. There's no point in making calamitous prophecies, for instance, if the calamities they prophesy can't be prevented. Why would Jonah have to go to Nineveh if all the people he'd be preaching to would be dead in 40 days no matter what? Thus, prophecies are actually conditional predictions. They will only come true if certain things occur first. The Ninevites would only be destroyed if they continued sinning, and Solomon would only have riches and wisdom if he obeyed Yahweh, according to 1 Kings chapter 3 verses 13 to 14. A gray area in this subject, however, is the story of Esau. In Romans chapter 9 verses 10 to 12, St. Paul tells us that God called Jacob to fulfill his purpose and that Satan entered into Esau. Satan's influence was what caused him to sell his birthright for food in Hebrews chapter 12 verse 16. However, in Romans chapter 9 verse 13, the apostle says Jehovah hated Esau and loved Jacob, and unlike Judas, who was a thief, Esau never actually broke any laws. Why then would God judge him when he was influenced before he was born? Well, let's look at Genesis chapter 25 verse 23. And the Lord said unto her, Two nations are in thy womb, and two manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels, and the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. There were two nations in Rebekah's womb because Satan had interfered with one of her children. We can say this because when Esau grew up and became an adult, he did not behave like a child of promise. He was not spiritually inclined. When he sold his birthright in verses 29 to 34, he defined his future, and thousands of years later, the Lord said that he would judge Satan's institution, represented by Edom. For thy violence against thy brother Jacob's shame shall cover thee, and thou shalt be cut off forever. Obadiah verse 10. God didn't hate Esau just because of his actions. Rather, it was Satan's interference with Esau that made Yahweh hate what he became. All this makes it clear that being spiritually influenced or receiving a prophecy about your behavior doesn't give you an excuse to sin. God hates sin, according to Psalms chapter 5 verse 5, because of how Satan has used it to disrupt his work, so he can't let it thrive for any reason. Even if you never heard about God in your lifetime, you can still be judged for what you did because you'll serve as an example to others, like the people of the Old Testament did in 1 Corinthians chapter 10 verse 11. Plus, Daniel chapter 12 verse 2 tells us that both the good and the bad will be resurrected, so everyone will be able to prove that, given the chance, they would rather serve God than obey Satan the devil. Thus, my advice is that we should pay attention to what our future might look like because it's probably our choices and not those of the spirits that will influence it. The only thing people are destined to do is understand that Jehovah is God, even if they won't respect him. As Isaiah said, "And it shall come to pass in the last days, that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it." Isaiah chapter 2 verse 2. And that is where I'm going to stop with this Bible Q&A. Are we destined to be who we are? No, unless we've been strongly influenced by spirits. Thank you for listening! Don't forget to like and subscribe.